Vaughn, Emma, Pamela, Frederick, Nelson, Marilyn, Charles, William, and Earl. My name is Arvolyn Hill, and in my 20s, I lost all 9 of my aunts and uncles to cancer, spanning over a decade and a half. My family is from Reading, Pennsylvania. Most people know Reading as the railroad stop on the Monopoly board, but few people know Pear Street, the little street across from the railroad tracks where my mother would play with her siblings. There was a little yard in the back where my grandmother grew Rose of Sharon and tomatoes. My mom has memories of picking fruits from the Concord grapevine and eating them as a juicy snack in the summertime. Reading, Pennsylvania was historically known for its profitable factories during the Industrial Revolution, a manufacturing hub for railroads, iron, steel. It was a very profitable place to live, close to Philadelphia. However, due to the 1893 panic, the area declined and has yet to recover to this day. Reading, Pennsylvania quickly began to change over the years. Exide Technologies operated a lead smelter from lead acid batteries, contaminated the soil. For 35 years, the soil was contaminated with lead, which led to the EPA marking it as a Superfund site. What makes something a Superfund site? An area that has been contaminated with hazardous waste. Reading, the place where my family calls home, was polluted, with high levels of arsenic going into the soil. And to make matters worse, Crompton and Knowles, a textile company just a few blocks from Pear Street, where they played, used synthetic azo dye, also known to contain derivatives that are linked to cancer. The textile factory was right where they lived and they played, really close to my home. Black and brown families are disproportionately affected by environmental oppression in cities like Reading. It is no coincidence that a place that was once desirable to live was in 2010 considered the poorest city in America. My family's story is not unique. In 2016, communities of color were living with contaminated drinking water in Flint, Michigan, a crisis that lasted 6 years, preventing that community from having access to safe drinking water. And Uniontown, Alabama, a population that is 90% African American, was impacted by the Tennessee Valley moving 400 million cubic yards of coal ash through the town without providing, to a landfill, not providing the citizens with any protection in 2010. The numbers are troubling. According to Melissa Checker's book, Polluted Promises, Environmental Racism and the Search for Justice in the Southern Town, African Americans are 3 times more likely to die from asthma, and 3 out of 5 African Americans live in a community with at least 1 toxic waste site. And on average, it takes longer for minority communities to be placed on a national priority list over white areas. In addition, in a study in the Annual Public Health, found that Black and brown communities are more likely to have contaminated drinking water. The prolonged history of environmental racism is evident in these statistics. Black and Latinx families in the US face higher levels of environmental oppression, which results in adverse health effects. Learning about these stories and also learning about my family's own history inspired me to study plants and dedicate my career to outdoor education to help create welcoming and safe, accessible spaces for Black people to live and enjoy. From a young age, I loved the outdoors. I grew up on Scattercoat land in Kent, Connecticut. I have memories of hiking the Appalachian Trail with my parents on weekends, visiting Kent Falls State Park, being transported into an oasis of natural falling water. Many times, we were the only Black people in these spaces, and sometimes we would get looks from other park visitors wondering why this Black family would be here. Although we may have not thought that we belonged in these spaces, we always belonged in these spaces because it was our home. I quickly realized the unique privilege this was when I moved to New York City. What used to be my world became urban architecture, and I had to recalibrate my life here. But I found so much solace, like the parks on 145th Street, Jackie Robinson Park, with the towering sycamore trees, as well as the views of the Hudson River from Riverside Park, and the Robert Klingscale Community Garden, where I grow herbs and vegetables in the summertime. My world opened up even more when I visited the New York Botanical Garden, a 250-acre botanical institution in the Bronx. It became a place where I could find peace in nature, like the forest that I grew up in back home. It also became the place where I started my career as an outdoor educator. From my time as a school programs educator at the Edible Academy to my position now as the manager of the Everett's Children's Adventure Garden. For the past years, I've grown professionally from writing seasonal, student-centered curriculum and mentoring the Explainer program, a program for teens to learn and work within the Botanical Gardens. At the Botanical Gardens, we are making a difference by educating kids on the value of green spaces, as well as nutritious foods and the wonders of nature. The Bronx, unfortunately, is also a threat to environmental racism. In the South Bronx, 15,000 trucks commute daily through 3 major highways: the Bruckner, the Cross Bronx Expressway, and the Major Deegan. Data from the New York City Department of Health reported that the asthma hospitalization rates in the Bronx are 70% higher than the rest of New York City, and 700% higher than the rest of New York State, excluding the Bronx. However, despite this, the Bronx has the most green spaces than any other borough in all of New York City. And the New York Botanical Gardens has a very important role to play in providing free access to its visitors so that they have a chance to breathe fresh air right in their community and be immersed in nature. In the winter of 2020, we piloted a program called Rooted in Plants, a celebration of Black botanical histories. We did activities to help kids learn about environmentalist Wangari Maathai, who planted thousands of trees in Kenya to combat deforestation. We taught kids the art of indigo dyeing and its West African textiles. And we also honored Dr. Caesar, who was an enslaved man who had his medical findings in print through an herbal remedy that he made. And he was the first Black person to have his medical findings put into print. It was exciting to be able to celebrate these untold stories that I never learned in school. Our historical markings in nature should not be erased, but embraced and discussed widely. I like teaching kids because I find that they're more open to learning new knowledge and having experiences. But it's especially important for Black and brown kids to see themselves represented in outdoor education and to see people who look like them in the outdoor education field. We belong outdoors too. And if we aren't exposing kids to those experiences, they might not think that this is something that they can do one day. We continue to build on our programming, and we now do a new series called Plants as Liberation at the Botanical Garden. Plants as Liberation showcases the diversity of careers in the outdoor education field while also celebrating a diversity of careers through other educators. It looks at live interviews with houseplant enthusiasts, farmers, herbalists, and influencers. Plants of Liberation was a space to uplift Black people who love plants and found creative and unconventional ways to show their love and exhibit in their careers, such as providing scholarships to Black people who might want to start farms. The contributions of these talented leaders creates a force towards raising environmental awareness of environmental equity. This force can facilitate a greater urgency to protect our planet, but most importantly, to protect each other. The educational videos also inspire the teens in our Explainer program to make their own videos and on-site content. They created videos on abolitionist Harriet Tubman and the relationship she has with wetlands, which is very similar to the one that we have at the Children's Garden. They made a video on Edmund Albius, a 12-year-old boy who was enslaved who found a technique for hand pollination of the vanilla orchid, a technique that horticulturalists still use today. I'm proud to be able to mentor these teens who represent youth from all over the city, but especially the Bronx. Together, we are making a more inclusive environment that welcomes everyone. At the Children's Garden, the youth of New York City are our educators. When the COVID-19 pandemic hit, it sparked a new way to have programming. It was my mom, actually, who said I should start making videos. And so I made a video on how to start a regrow garden, saving food scraps like a pineapple crown or an avocado seed and regrowing them to grow new plants. It was a way to show families that you can regrow your own food right at home using food scraps. And also to show that you don't need to just be at the botanical gardens to experience nature. Nature is all around you. Nature is the street trees on your block. Nature is the seed growing on your windowsill. Nature is your local park. Despite the environmental injustices we experience, we can still make an effort to help people in our community cultivate their own relationships with nature. Although we may not be able to control our immediate environment, we can nurture the spaces that are accessible to us through our own actions. We can make sure our local parks are clean of litter. We can turn empty lots into our community into community gardens, and we can elevate youth voices. And we can hold politicians accountable for safe environmental laws. And you can learn about the local plants in your neighborhood. With this, we can empower communities by giving everyone the agency to look after and protect our city's green spaces. My work today is in honor of my elders, who drew on plants as a source of unity, despite the very harsh circumstances they faced. And I hate that they're not here today. But we are all a part of an entire network that we can nurture each other through community care. And by doing this, I hope to continue to inspire NYC's young people to relive and reshape their relationship with their natural home and carry forward the legacy of appreciating our natural environment.